After the release of Deltarune Chapters 3 and 4, I have fallen back down into the Undertale and Deltarune fandom, consuming every gameplay, retrospective, and video essay about the games and fandom I can find. Like many others, I was deep in the Undertale trenches back in 2016 to 2018, which means I was exposed to a lot, and I mean a lot, of the infamous alternative universes, or AUs. I think the original Undertale gave us just enough to fall in love with the characters, but be a short enough game that the fandom wanted so much more. Starbot comic dubs, soundtracks for every AU you can think of, entire fan games on Game Jolt, the yearly tradition of watching the Sans AU Christmas Party
I
comic
think this
dub.
stuff is making me want to kiss Underfell Sans.
So today, I wanted to look back on all your favorite and least favorite Undertale AUs and rank them in a tier list. I will be ranking these on three main components: design, the design potential of the characters and how fun they are to draw; story, the writing of the characters and how it's changed from Undertale; and gameplay, how well it could work as a game. Would it have enough unique elements to differentiate it from the source material, or will it just feel like Undertale with a new coat of paint? I will also rank them based on a mix of my thoughts on the original creation and what the community did with it, to get a full grasp of its potential. By the way, I'll be talking about and showing footage of some AU fan games, so if I mention any you've been meaning to play, I suggest skipping to the next section. Let's get started. Created by Tumblr user Popcorn Prince, Swaptail is one of the first Undertale AUs ever made. Every major character switches roles and personalities with their counterpart, so Sans takes Papyrus's role and vice versa. I'm also lumping in every other swap and roles AU into this review, so I'm sorry if I don't mention your favorite swap shift Storytale AU. I was never intrigued by a specific one even as a kid, so I'm just judging the premise as a whole. This has a lot of potential for design. There's a lot of great art for these AUs. It's a really fun concept, but when it comes to the story and gameplay, it has a major problem. I realized this all thanks to Kazoo Cat's video, The Music of Undertale AUs, that when you switch two characters' roles and personalities, you just get the same character with a different design. That's why I prefer swap AUs where they switch roles but retain their personalities, like the fan game by Team Switched, which for the most part keeps each character's original quirks and personalities. They also introduce new monsters and areas, such as the Starlight Isles rather than Snowdin. Overall, this AU does have a high risk of feeling like a modded Undertale, but if the characters keep their original personalities, there's a lot of fun potential here, especially for character designs and fights. Underswap will be going in B tier. Also one of the first ever made Undertale AUs, Tumblr user Vic the Underfella posted some art of Toriel with big yellow eyes and bloody hands. People loved this, and soon after they posted villainous designs for all of the Undertale cast. The community quickly made fan content for this AU, and now everyone and their mother has their own take on Underfell, where all the characters are much more malicious. Again, I'm lumping in every AU that is an AU combined with the tone of Underfell, such as Swapfell. It seems like every single AU possible has a Fell counterpart. I recently learned that there's actually a term for this, which is when you Fellify an AU. This AU did get the reputation for being Undertale but edgy, and well, yeah, understandable, but I want to see if there's more this AU has to offer. Some designs for the monsters are pretty cool. I especially like the ones where they change the shape of their silhouette, like how Papyrus's is more sharp. And their bright, bold colors are for sure a staple of the creator's style, but other takes just kind of feel like Undertale if it took place in Hazbin Hotel. The same can be said for writing and gameplay. There's no official comic or story of some sort from the creator, but there's been many interpretations that all vary in quality. I'd like to highlight two fan games, Revival's Underfell by Team UF and TC Underfell by Team Colossus. They both contain new puzzles, new attack patterns, and a kinder, meeker Flowey who helps you on your journey. Both only have short demos available, but they look pretty good and could be worth playing, maybe, I don't know, they weren't available on Mac. Overall, I think the premise of the monsters acting more malicious but retaining traces of their personalities can be really fun for some of them. Especially Papyrus. I really like the idea of him still being goofy, but much more of a hard ass and a bit more sinister in his methods of capturing a human. I don't know why I'm getting so attached to this guy while writing this. I really wonder what this says about my taste in characters. Anyways, I ended up finding this AU much more charming than before I looked this deep into it, so Underfell earns an A rank for me. Dusttale is an AU where Sans decides to kill every other monster to gain enough love to finally defeat the human. It began as an ask blog on, you guessed it, Tumblr. Dust Sans, or officially known as Murder Sans, has a simple yet iconic design change, with his hood flipped up and eyes glowing red and blue. Although I personally don't think he'd ever be desperate enough to kill his loved ones, it allows fans to explore a new take on Sans, and a new, even harder genocide fight. that uses other characters' powers as well. Besides that, I don't have much to say about this one. I'll probably give it a low B or high C tier. I'm kinda surprised at how popular this AU is. Not that it's bad, I just really thought it was underrated as a kid. But recently it seems like when people list off Undertale AUs in other videos, it's at least in the top 5, even 3 sometimes. Created by Sour Apple Studios, Horrortale takes place after a neutral run that leaves Undyne as the ruler of the underground. The fallen human, Eliza, is found by Flowey, who turns out to be her only trustworthy ally. Shortly after Frisk left, the core broke down, and monsters began to starve with the lack of food and energy. Eventually, Undyne makes the hard decision to kill Sans to use his power for the core. But this, of course, goes wrong, and now monsters have gone insane from starvation, and Sans encourages the citizens of Snowdin to eat humans they come across. Now, at a glance, this does kinda seem like any other Undertale but evil and fucked up AU, but I think it's at least unique for the premise. There doesn't seem to be a lot of AUs that take place post-neutral run, when there's a lot that can change for the underground in each neutral ending. I really like that Sans was the one to propose eating humans to spite Undyne so she can't use them to break the barrier. Sans' design makes more sense when I learn about his backstory, and I kinda like how Papyrus is drawn here. He still has his look of innocence and naivety, but his teeth tell you something went very wrong. Death and injury are portrayed as very graphic, and something about the art style is generally unsettling to me, but I think it makes sense based on the dark circumstances of this AU. Sour Apple Studios has also made a short demo on Newgrounds. It's a point-and-click game where you have to make the right decisions or go the right way to avoid a horrific death. This separates it enough for the source material for me, and while it's pretty simple, it gives you a good look into Eliza's world. Horrortale gets an A tier rank from me. Undertale, but it takes place in space. Started by Tumblr user Mimi Pipinski, they posted galaxy-themed character designs of the cast and some slice-of-life moments. If nothing else, this AU is very pretty, its main premise being the aesthetic and setting change. There's actually a completed fan game for this AU on GameJolt. In my opinion, it sometimes just feels like a modded Undertale, but they add new elements that make it worth playing, such as the flirt and action having an impact on your relationships, new soul moves, and a lot of different endings. While I really like all of these additions, most of them don't really involve space, and could work just as well in an addition to normal Undertale, so I'm giving Outertale a solid B tier. Oceantale. It's in the name, you get it. This AU was definitely created with character designs in mind first, which is so understandable, because look at this fan art. Look at this! Holy shit, dude! Does this have a lot of story or gameplay potential? No, not really, but this is my ranking, and I love a good pirate or mermaid AU, and this has both. A tier. There have been a lot of different iterations of Mafia Tale, the earliest one being Mob Tale by Tumblr user Inside Under, who now goes by Bite Ghost. She posted some concept art of Undertale characters if they were in the Mafia. That's pretty much it. Cool designs. Another popular version, the one I remember watching the comic dub for a lot, was Undertale Mob by Nia Black Neko, a series of comics where Sans and Papyrus find a very young human who they name Little Pup. This AU doesn't actually have a lot to do with the mob in my opinion. Like, they have the outfits, they get into a couple fights, but I feel like the main storyline could work fine in a normal setting, as its main storyline is the Skeleton Brothers taking care of the human and keeping them away from Asgore and his minions. Finally, Under Mafia was created by Tumblr user Kid, who posted their own concept art of Sans, Papyrus, Gaster, and Frisk, then made a few drawings in the style of a visual novel. There was an actual visual novel in development by Stormy on GameJolt, but it doesn't seem like there's been any updates on it in a few years and no playable demo was released. I don't know, it's a fun idea, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of unique story or gameplay potential, so I'll be putting Mafia Tale in C tier. Reaper Tale is an AU where each character is a godlike figure. For example, Sans and Papyrus are the gods of death, and Toriel is the goddess of life. Cool. C tier. Sorry, I wanted to include this one because I have some nostalgia for it, but I don't have much to say. But I will mention that the creator, Renrink, is still active in the fandom, and occasionally still makes artwork for this AU, so that's pretty neat. Originally made by Tears, Dance Tale is an AU where all the cast have their own dance styles, and rather than fighting, Frisk has to have dance battles to avoid injury. Really fun concept. I don't imagine it would change much about the story, and I haven't seen a game developer's take on this yet. Although an Undertale-inspired rhythm game sounds pretty cool. Something I don't like is how much Sans and Frisk content there is of this AU. I don't intend to start shipping discourse, but I just do not care for this ship at all. I was gonna rewatch a comic dub that I really enjoyed as a kid, but I could not find it. I looked for so long, but it's just gone. Unless I'm completely misremembering, it had this art as its thumbnail and was called Dusttale the movie. Right? Does anyone else remember this? If anyone can find this, please send it to me. Anyways, low B, high C tier. Beginning as a comic series by Lover of Piggies, who now goes by the Crayon Queen, Aftertale is an AU where Sans injects himself with determination in an attempt to defeat the human. Eventually, he still gets hit, and when he goes to reset, Kara does first, leaving him stuck in the save screen, and if he leaves the save screen, he'll turn into dust. Kara takes control of Frisk's body and ends up in the middle of a pacifist route, and Frisk gets stuck with Aftertale Sans, officially known as Geno Sans. The Sans from the pacifist timeline discovers this, and tries to work with Geno to finally take down Kara. Geno's design is cool. I really like that he wears Papyrus' scarf, which is often affiliated with Dusttale Sans instead. I found one fan game made by MPT on GameJolt, which looks pretty good, but this AU is much more story-centered anyways. At first, I had no strong attachment to this AU and was ready to put it in C tier, but I really enjoyed reading the comic for this. It sets up a really intriguing storyline with high stakes, but keeps the goofiness of Undertale intact. I will be putting Aftertale in B tier, possibly even a low A tier. As a kid, I always saw these designs, but never understood where they were from or what their purpose was, so I'm happy to finally learn about their origins. I'm lumping these characters into one section because rather than being made for their own AUs, these Sans exist outside of AUs and are aware of them, also known as outcodes. Ink Sans was made by Kamyet. He fell out of an incomplete AU, and thanks to a paintbrush that fell into the void with him, he is able to create any object by painting it. His purpose is to protect the scripts of Undertale AUs. A counter to Ink is Error Sans, created by Lover of Piggies, who now goes by the Crayon Queen. Error was a version of Aftertale Sans that fell between a dimension between universes and became this messed up, glitchy version. His goal now is to destroy all AUs. Ink began as a comic, and Error originated as an Ask blog. While I'm still not super interested in their storylines, the creators clearly put a lot of love and thought into their characters and worlds. There's also plenty of fan-made fights with Ink and Error, with well-made sprites and challenge and attack patterns, so I'll be putting Ink and Error in a solid B tier. Also made by Lover of Piggies, Underfresh doesn't actually have a plotline, at least one that follows Undertale. And Fresh Sans isn't actually Sans at all. Instead, he is a parasite that took control of one and can leech off other outcode Sanses. I wanted to make this its own category because Ink and Error are direct opposites of each other, and I think the section would have been bloated with Fresh or make him feel like a third wheel. Also, a lot of people made fresh designs for the rest of the cast as well. The obvious difference from Undertale is that every character now has a 90s aesthetic and uses outdated slang and memes. Middle school me would eat up this AU. But honestly, besides Sans, I think these are just really repetitive and tacky designs, and doesn't really offer much for the story. I know it's not supposed to be taken too seriously, but it's just not my cup of tea now. Everyone else's take on this AU is D tier, but the original creator's Fresh Sans is at least B tier, so I'll put this in C tier. Sorry, Fresh Sans enjoyers. Okay, so hear me out. I know a lot of people might have bad memories with this AU, including me, but just like everything else in this video, I want to give it a fair review. Originally made by NSFW Shame Cave, Underlust is an AU where the underground is dealing with widespread infertility. So every monster of age decided to use the soul trait of lust in an attempt to raise fertility rates. Because of this, every monster is in a, quote from the wiki, constant state of heat, except for ghosts. Eventually, Frisk falls into the underground and makes it their goal to teach monsters about true love. The first chapter, and only chapter I could find, mainly focuses on Papyrus and Metaton's relationship, and Metaton's horrific experiences in this world as someone not affected by lust. I believe this comic was deleted by the creator but archived with permission, so you can find it if you'd like to, but I'd rather not show work with such heavy themes in my silly amateur video. That being said, the community seemed to run with this AU just to draw sexy Sans. Some artwork I found tries to depict deeper topics, such as conflicting your self-worth for how desirable you are, but I just cannot get into this characterization. I want to think there's some interesting discussion to be had here outside of sexy Sans, but again, I don't think this is the right video to handle such a delicate topic, but please feel free to share your thoughts or memories of this AU in the comments. Anyways, design. I've seen some genuinely good art made with Lust Sans, but the designs all pretty much consist of revealing or tight clothing that even in the context of this AU, I think could be a bit more creative and fit in the character. Also, I find it really funny that Frisk is just wearing the asexual flag, hell yeah. Storytelling we already covered, it deviates from Undertale quite a bit. I honestly think it's a really interesting story setup, but I just can't imagine the Undertale cast acting this way. And while I respect the topics the comic covers, I'm not a fan of the dialogue for the most part. Gameplay... I think this AU would work best as a dating sim, where you can do a true love route or a lust route. But if I were to play an Undertale dating sim, I would rather just date the original cast and play as someone who isn't Frisk. I'm glad this video gave me a reason to look at the origins of this AU, but even afterwards, I can't say I'm a fan. Not because I think anything that has NSFW content in it is bad, not at all. I am just not super into the writing or characterization in this AU. Unfortunately, I'll be putting Underlust in D tier. Okay, while editing this, I found a video I watched at like 10 years old. It's another take on Underlust where Frisk is also sexualized and it follows a similar route to Undertale, except for the obvious difference. Papyrus looks so scary in this, holy shit. Freaky Papyrus. Created by Camila Cuevas, Glitchtail is an animated series where a failed genocide run causes a series of glitches in the universe. Just as Kara is about to kill Sans, Frisk takes the hit instead and gives Sans part of their soul, which allows Sans to kill Kara and reset the timeline. From then on, there's a lot of action-packed drama with monsters and magic trying to be accepted in the human world, and the cast has to deal with new enemies. The art style improved greatly over the course of its creation. Although it's animated, a lot of it is still shots, similar to a comic, but there are plenty of fight scenes to make up for it. A lot of fight scenes. I really liked this AU as a kid, but looking back, the writing is kinda lackluster. Which, to be fair, you could say is the case for a lot of fan-made Undertale stuff at the time, but it makes it less enjoyable to look back on. There's plenty of videos already criticizing Glitchtail in more depth, so I'll just wrap this section up here. I'll be putting Glitchtail in C tier for its nostalgic value and impressive animation, but outside of those factors, it's not something I would call super memorable now. X-Tale and its connected story Underverse is an animated series by Jael Penaloza. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. X-Tale is an AU where Gaster is raised on Frisk and Kara as his children, but the universe they reside in is very empty, and Gaster is ashamed he can't create more for them. Fortunately, Ink Sans is there to show him that there's a whole multiverse out there and that he can create anything. He just needs more motivation. This causes some problems. In the spin-off Underverse, Cross, X-Tale Kara in a new form, steals half of the original Sans' soul, which starts his journey in traveling across the multiverse, meeting other versions of himself, including from many of the AUs we covered, and recruiting them to defeat an enemy that threatens them all. I never watched this one as a kid, and I'm sorry I'm not gonna sit down to watch the whole thing for this video, but it looks amazing. I'm sure if you were big into AUs, this was cinema for you. Similar to Glitchtail, there's a lot of scenes that look more like a comic, but the compositions feel much more dynamic. Game Jolt creator Marcelise made a fan game called Underverse Battles. You can fight against characters from various AUs, and Jevil for some reason, and story mode follows the plot of Underverse. The sprites in this are great, and the fighting mechanics are based on Deltarune rather than Undertale, which sets it apart from any other game I've mentioned so far. For my research and the few clips I watched, I think X-Tale and Underverse earn a solid B tier. And that concludes my ranking of Undertale AUs. I moved some things around. I was being too much of a hater on Underfresh and moved it up to B tier. It's a silly and fun AU and I was taking it too seriously. I also moved Horrortale up to S tier because, well, one of them had to be S tier. But I think it earns its spot for its mix of nostalgic value, recognizable character design and art style, and unique storyline. But this isn't even close to a full list, especially since it excludes any crossover AUs, or AUs like Disbelief where it's Papyrus fighting you in a genocide style fight but it's not underswap, but there's also a swapped version with Sans but it's not the same as the original genocide fight, and there's a feathered fight version of both, and yeah, you get it, these were just mainly the popular ones or ones that I have nostalgia for. But please feel free to mention any I missed in the comments. Thank you for joining me on this look back and review. For watching until the end, here's an AU I made in middle school where I combined Undertale with my other biggest interest at the time, creating Sanders Tale, where the whole cast is replaced with a Thomas Sanders character. Could you imagine a game like this? Thanks again for watching. This is my first time making a YouTube video like this. I don't think I have the voice for long-form videos, and I don't even have a mic. I'm just talking into my MacBook and made this on CapCut desktop. This video is being held together like sticks and glue. Also, I'm sorry you can hear a fan in the back in some parts, it's hot as hell right now. But for the most part, I really enjoyed making this and hope to create more. Although I'm very slow with content creation. If you're coming from my Instagram, you know that for sure. Speaking of, feel free to follow me over on Insta. I make art and animatics of whatever my current interests are, so hopefully there'll be something new there soon. I also have an Etsy where I sell candy bracelets and Artist Alley type merch for various fandoms, so feel free to check that out too. All links will be in the description. Last thing I want to mention is that I tried to credit every artist and piece of footage I used, so if I missed someone or got something wrong, please let me know in the comments. Please also share any of your own thoughts and opinions on Undertale AUs, or even criticism for how you think I could improve my videos, but please be nice, I am so new to this and so scared. That's all for now. I hope to see you around somewhere. Bye bye!